Hi, everybody. Welcome to our September seminar on how to network virtually with the New Mexico Rainforest University Center. The University Center provides entrepreneurial training on entrepreneurial topics for free, and this is our September virtual seminar. And we have with us today Stacy Sacco, who is our UNM Taos mentor. And Stacy provides mentoring to both students and community members and entrepreneurs in New Mexico. And he will be talking to us today about how to network virtually during this time of COVID-19 when everything is virtual. So here's Stacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I think you're all on mute, but if anybody has any questions at all, please jump in or put something in chat. And I like to, in any presentations I make, I try to make them interactive so that they're more value to you. And what we normally would do for these kind of workshops is we'd meet somewhere. So we'd meet at the Lobo Rainforest, or now called Rainforest Innovations. But if you haven't been down there, I would encourage you to go down. So Cecilia and I would normally tell you more about that or give you a tour of the facility if you're in there. But it's behind the old church at Broadway and Central. It's now the second up to the fifth floor, I guess, or dorms. The bottom floor, though, has a lot of things going on in there. There's this group, the Sandia Labs has an office in there. Albuquerque, Innovate Albuquerque, I think, is still in there. These folks, the Rainforest Innovations, I let you know about it because some of you might be interested in starting a business and you want to protect your idea with potentially some kind of intellectual property, so maybe licenses or a patent, and they'll help you with that. They have staff in there. So I go in and do some mentoring and workshops like this, more about starting the business, but there's that all the whole other detail that happens behind it. And just to do a little commercial, they do have a class over there that I think is fabulous. Bill runs it, and it's called Create, Sell, Bank. And it's a class where they're going to teach you how to start an online store. And so for anybody that's job hunting, I always encourage them to go to that too, because you basically are creating your own job. But also, if you're a small business owner, a lot of people struggle with trying to get a website put together. And gosh, it's not easy, but my wife created mine outside of what I do at UNM and on a Saturday. Now, she's smarter than me, but she did it on Wix. But what Bill teaches you is even more all-encompassing, is then how to promote your business and some other things around that. So anyways, well, let me go ahead and get started here. Excuse me, I've got 13 slides, 3 are pictures, so I've got, I think, an hour. I'll fly through this a little bit, but some tips. I normally do a strategic networking presentation where I talk about, well, I used to do one was more just power networking, and it was about when you walk in a room, what do you do? Who do you meet? How do you work that room? And then I noticed in a lot of rooms that I'd run into people who were like, well, I'm not seeing anybody I need to meet. And I'm like, well, what's your background? Who are you trying to meet? And they go, HR managers. I'm like, they're at an Albuquerque chamber event. And I'm like, well, what are you doing in here? Because, probably some percentage of the people in there are HR, but you'd be better off to go to a real HR group, which is like, gosh, there's lots. HRMA, which is there's the SHRM, or Society of Human Resource Management, has a New Mexico chapter, and then there's 4 other chapters, one in Albuquerque, Roswell, Santa Fe, etc. And then there's American Talent Development, which was American Society of Training Development, is now a group. International Society of Performance Improvement. There's a payroll management group. I mean, on and on and on, different aspects of HR. So if you're in that room, who are you going to meet? People that are in HR. Maybe 10% of them, it flips the other way, 10% are printers or associates trying to service firms that are trying to sell to the HR people. But well, so what it reminded me of is that a lot of people, they may be good at working a room, but they're in the wrong room. So you need to think strategically. And now it's even crazier because you've got, well, people would say there's fewer rooms. I hear that a lot. There's less networking. And I'd actually say I'm still going to 3-4 meetings a week. Now, the difference is that I'm going to meetings where there's maybe a workshop like this where somebody's talking about a particular topic, but you'll know there's other people in the room, so they're interested in what you're interested in, so you have some commonality. So there's an affiliation there. So that's still okay. Part of the reason why they asked me to speak is on this particular topic too, is just I moved from here to Orange County, and I don't think people here realize how tough that is. I mean, not that I'm some big hero here, but one of the first meetings I went into, I didn't know anybody. I mean, you walk in a room of 100 people and you walk over to somebody and say hi, and they're a little bit suspicious, like, what are you selling? And you got to be careful if you come across as too nice. And I'm a nice guy, so then they're thinking, well, what do you want? So you get sort of this hands-off thing a little bit. So you need to work your chops or work your ability to walk up to somebody. You don't start selling, but say hi. But I'll go into more details on that. But the point is that when I was in Orange County, I had to work the room big time because every room I walked into, I wouldn't know anybody. When I moved back here, the first meeting I went to was the American Society of, what is it? American New Mexico Association Association Executives, NMSAE, with Bill McKinstry. And it was over by, this is one of those side hotels over there by Best Buy. And I walked in, and I had just moved back here, but I, grew up here, so I know people. But I knew about 5 people in the room, and I thought, well, this is weird. I actually know people. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to work that, but I think that's normally what I would talk about in another type of presentation because you're physically in the room. Here you can still connect to people. You just have to sort of rethink that approach and how do you do it online. So we'll talk about that too. But because I've been connecting people and published lots of lists on a website called NM Netlinks, I've got 5,000 links or 4,000 links on there. I've got if you can see in here, my LinkedIn followers, 6,000 people I've met. So I was named one of the power brokers, best person to have lunch with. Although I love to tease Laryl, that's from Albuquerque magazine. He's a publisher. I say, can you quit giving me this title? Well, actually, I'm one of 6. I was number 1 one year. Number 1 this last year, I got bumped, was the mayor. So, well, you want to have lunch with the mayor, not me. And what's funny about that is I tease him. I go, can you change it to the best guy to have a salad with or something? Because I keep going to all these lunches and getting fat. So one of the most connected business persons in Albuquerque. I was voted that one of 7. Best person to pitch Albuquerque is one of 18. Although I would say I laughed when I got that because they asked me to give them, what would I say? Well, everybody else that was picked said, well, we have great chili and we got great sunsets. Well, I would promise you that's not a reason for me to move somewhere. I mean, I love clam chowder. I'm not moving to Boston. Probably some beautiful sunsets are why, but I'm not moving there because of sunsets. I'm going to move somewhere because there's jobs and there's connections. So that's going to happen through this, about your way to start connecting with people. So the only other thing is I am a lecturer at UNM, so I do teach some classes on entrepreneurship, and I do head up the Small Business Institute. So if you run a business and would like some help with having some student teams work with you, please let me know. Happy to do that. So why networking? So ultimately, when I go to these things, most people I run into are there to get a job or learn about job openings, maybe meet prospective employers if they're in the right role. What gets a little crazy is if you're that HR person or you're selling to HR, you're an HR company selling, well, probably a better example is marketing. I run into people that are ad agents and they'll go to a marketing meeting thinking they're going to sell products. Well, guess who's in the room? All their competitors. So they're, from a job perspective, though, you meet people, you get known in the industry. So maybe if there's a job opening, somebody might let you know that your competitor has a job opening. So there's that aspect of jobs. But if you're selling something, you don't want to be in a room necessarily with your competitors. It's good to know what they're doing and meet with them, but you probably, again, this is more being strategic. You probably want to be in a room where you're going to meet decision makers or people that would buy your product. So that's a little bit of a flip in that concept. You might go to networking events to start and grow an existing business. So that's, again, the same point. Connect to prospective customers, connect to resources, vendors. Maybe you're in a group that you're going to meet. Maybe I have a lot of people that sponsor student organizations on campus because they want to hire those students. And a person called the other day wants to hire a student intern for accounting position. Well, I'm not really tied to that, so I send pretty much internships to the career services office at both UNM campus wide and then Anderson. I don't want to compete with them, and they have a much broader reach than I do, so that makes more sense. But you might want to meet other peers that are owning businesses and somebody who's been successful, and hang out with them to hear more about, maybe talk about an issue you have. And then, of course, there's personal development. A lot of the workshops and things I do online are to learn new skills. Right now, I'm going through the Hootsuite and HubSpot training, which is great. You've got this Create, Sell, Bank course. There's so many opportunities to learn. It's great. And I really am a lifelong learner, and that's a great way to be, I think, for all of us. It's a big world out there, and the more you can learn, the more you can have in your toolbox. I've been laid off 4 times since I moved back to New Mexico. I always laugh. People say, well, you've had a lot of jobs. No, I've been laid off. I'm the poster boy for layoffs. So I've had to learn to, and it's partly why I network too, is so that in case I get laid off, I've got an opportunity. I know what the opportunities are. So anyway, so there's lots of reasons why you're going to be online and where you're going to network. And all of them seem to have some similar things, I would suggest, that goes back to this idea of that you're connecting to people and then helping others connect. In any case, this is part of a TED talk I gave about how much time you have, and I think that's one of your limitations. So every time I show this, people ask if it's me. That's not me. It's a cute picture, though. But here's your point: is that, and it sounds morbid, but it's not. You have 100 years. If you live 100 years, it's 5,200 weeks. And how does that impact everything? Well, it's about, you only get certain windows. So if you're in a networking event, you want to take advantage of that. Don't just go. Well, you can. I've done that too. You just walk in a room and start talking to people. But if you can make it purposeful and you're directed, you're better use of your time. So I'm 64 now. If I retire in 3 years, that's 3 more years to teach 24 more classes. Because it's 6 semesters. It's 4 per semester. Am I saying that right? Yeah, 6 times 4. I forgot to put in there 4 classes a semester. So that's it. And that's important to me because I love teaching. And so I need to make sure that every class I teach, I hope, is great. Make it great. And my story on this one is I'm 64. I should live till I'm 83, given my actuarial table. In fact, I put the timeline like this into the job section on my website, so you can create the table. I create a table. So I've got about 1,000 more weeks left. But where that turns into, it sounds morbid, but when they bring back the Balloon Fest, it means I'm going to 19, 20 more Balloon Festas. So everybody else is going to go Tuesday night. I'm going to go because that's their night open. No. I'm going to the night where they have fireworks, balloon glow, and they've got special shapes. And I'm on a diet, but I'm going to eat 2 corn dogs. Hey, I'm going to make it great because I get these little windows of opportunity to do these things. Where that shows up for us as business people is 1 meeting. If I go to 1 meeting a month, which I know a lot of people do, 3 more years, that's 12 per year. That's 36 networking opportunities. I better, damn it, be in the right room, meeting the right people and taking advantage of that time. If I'm not, go home. I mean, well, go, but I think you really need to think in terms of time is money, and that connection is valuable to you. So I did add the personal timeline on Indian Metlings if you want to look any of that up. So I did go through Quality New Mexico. They have an awards ceremony, nominations for quality companies. I was actually went through it with Kirtland Federal Credit Union. I helped write up our application or nomination. And then I was an examiner for about 7 years and a lead examiner near the end. So basically you have companies come in and say, hey, we care about, this would be timely now, we care about diversity. That's one of our goals. And then they'd say, so we measure it, and then here's how we implement it, and here's how we hire diverse managers or different leaders. So we have a good mix. So there's this connecting point, and they call it plan, do, check, act, but it's a process. So the more you can, this is going to sound boring, but the more you can turn everything you do in life into a process and think that through, you'll find that then you're examining different aspects of that. So like a sales effort or sales activity or results report, you're going to measure how many people you called on and then how many became a sale. So that hit ratio is going to be important to you, because if you're not good at presenting what your products are or paying attention to what their needs are and then matching that, you're not going to make many sales. So the idea of a process or a flow chart is very valuable. So having done that Quality New Mexico program, it got me thinking one time about, well, what's my process in terms of networking? So this is basically that. And I think you want to start with who's your ideal person to meet. So one of the things I do is I'll say, so who is that ideal person? What am I trying to accomplish here? So it starts to get you in the mindset of maybe 10, 12 attributes of this person, and then rank them and put in the top 3, and then say, where do they all match up, one of these Venn diagrams. So I had a woman I worked with at West who was trying to do or start a new business with high-end nail salon. So she needed women that were probably working because they care about their nails, certain income level, and then she wanted them near her nail salon, so it was up towards Sandy Heights. And so you put those 3 Venn diagrams in there. So who's in the middle? And then how do you reach them? Well, on her end, it's higher income women. Well, from a networking perspective, and I have a list on my website of all the women's groups, she needs to be hanging out with higher end women or higher income women. So where are they going? Well, they're going to NABO, National Association of Women Business Owners, Executive Women's International, American Women Business Association. And there's about 35 groups that there's women business owners or executive women belong to those groups. So you got there by making the list of all the things you're looking for and the people you need to meet. And that might be demographics or psychographics, and then rank them and then figure out try to make it easy, 20-80 rule here, Pareto's principle. How do I get to something? If you look for somebody that's got all 10 attributes, it's not going to happen. Well, you'll find one, but you need to get to the person in the middle. To create a niche or a target. So then you would define your goals, research lists. I have a list of all the professional associations on my website in the state. I think there's 8,000 in the country. I know my favorite one is women helicopter pilots. And they have a magazine they put out called Twirly Bird Girl News. Is that hilarious? But there's pretty much anything you can sort of think of in any industry. There's probably an association or a society that supports that. But of the 8,000 that I've read about in the United States, we have about 500 local chapters. Now there's people that are members of those groups. So if you need to reach them, you might go to the national group and then work your way back. But 500 groups here is a lot. You could be busy every week going to so many events. But think about which one's best tied to what you're interested in, whether it's industry or function. And then are you going mostly as a business goal or social? And then you create a calendar and start thinking about budgeting for that, because some of the meetings cost some money. Right now, quite a few meetings are free, like the Mexico American Marketing Association. Their next two meetings, they're online, they're free. And I'm going to encourage my students to go to those because they have a great group here, very active. Anyways, when you get there, normally what you would do is check the roster or be introduced. Well, that's a little harder online, so I'll go through that in a minute. But you want to sort of get in your head that you're hoping that you can make a connection to somebody and help them solve a problem. A lot of people go to networking functions and then they want to sell something. So they go through their script. Hi, nice to meet you, Elisa. And by the way, this is what do you do? And then once they finish telling you what you do, you start telling them all about you. Well, if it's scripted, it comes across as very insincere. You're better off to spend more time listening to them. If you promise anything, better, make a note, follow up. You said, I'm going to send you an article I read about that I think you'd like, or they ask you to refer them to somebody. Okay. And then make sure you do. But the idea is to be a resource, and then make sure that you capture their information so that you can stay in touch with them. And maybe if there's a reason to get together, then set up a time to meet. And right now, probably be online. I get 10 to 20 invites to do something because I'm the best guy to have lunch with. Oh my God. But I get a lot of calls. I got 2 already this morning from people wanting to meet, so I'm going to schedule some time. But so your meeting your targets to meet are people that are decision makers, buyers, influencers, advocates in the middle, connections to resources. So still lots of value. And how do you do this? Well, again, I mentioned there's lots of groups. Most all these lists are on some aspect of my website, so make it easy for you. What's funny is I will ask people, especially people in economic development in the state, how many chambers of commerce? Now, if you know what a chamber is, it's a merchant, like a merchant group, merchant associations. It's businesses that really probably have anything in common. They're a small business in their location. They'll be very mixed, but they'll have mixers and workshops, and they're still doing that even in the COVID era. But of those, I'll ask people, how many chambers of commerce do we have? And almost everybody says, well, we have 3 in Albuquerque, Greater Albuquerque. So the Albuquerque Chamber, which I used to work for, I was the vice president, and then the Spano Chamber, and then they'll always know one other. Well, it ends up there's about 20 chambers in Albuquerque. So there's quite a few. There's 75 plus statewide, but you've got location ones. You've got Placitas Chamber, Rancho de Albuquerque, and depends on how far you want to go out. There's East Mountain. They're in Edgewood. Actually, 2 chambers out there. There's a Belen and a Los Lunas Chamber. There's a Rio Rancho Chamber that's huge. It's as big as the Hispano Chamber. Very active. Then you got 2 or 3 merchant groups, the Old Town Merchants group. So then you've got these economic development groups, the Main Street. Within the chambers, you've got sort of niche groups. There's a new African American chamber. There's a American Indian chamber. There's a women's chamber. There's a global chamber, green chamber. Now the one for Albuquerque's sort of on hiatus, but there's still one in Santa Fe and Silver City. And then, I spoke at recently, the Gay and Lesbian Chamber. They're called Out. And there's a cannabis chamber. It's crazy. So there's lots and lots of groups to connect to. That's the point. And depending on what you want to do, there's lots of ways to connect into these people. You might be a speaker like I am today or write an article for them. But you might want to see when their meetings are. And you don't have to be a member to go to the meetings generally. The only group that does that is somewhat exclusive, is the Economic Forum. But they're very high end. That's about 200 CEOs in the state belong to that group, and you have to be a CEO and have a certain size business to even join. So they try to be selective within a certain band. But other than that, pretty much any group is very, and there's welcoming too, but I'm not going to make it sound that way. But Bob over there is just a real gem. But everybody else is pretty welcoming to you and will invite you into their group. So There's other groups, leads groups now, where you go to maybe meet for a week, every week. BNI is the biggest one, Business Network International. And you join, usually you pay dues, and then you go in. You have to be a non-competing business. If you're an accountant and there's another accountant in the room, they probably won't let you join that one, but they'll find one of their different clubs to join. And then, of course, all the universities, UNM, CNM now is CNM Ingenuity. We've got the Rainforest Innovations. There's lots and lots of ways to connect in. My favorite thing right now is that I'm connecting into groups outside the state. So I'm into a lot of the sustainability green issues. So I've been going to the American Sustainability Business Society. So I was on that the other day, and there were several senators you see on national TV were in that chat. I was like, wow, I would have never gotten the chance to meet those people. So you can go to national conferences from your desk. What I would do is create a calendar of events. There's lots of calendars out there. Probably the best one is going to be the New Mexico business calendar in the middle there in the top part. That's run by the state. Although it's diminished a lot in the last few years. They used to have about 100 groups on there. I track it pretty closely. There's only about 25, but it's a quick snapshot of what's going on. Although I would say you probably should be very specific about what groups you need to meet. These are more general business. The Hispano Chamber does a great job, more so than the other chambers, of having a calendar on their website. And by the way, if you're a business and you have an event like a grand opening, you may want to join the chamber and put your event information on there. They have about 1,000 connections. So there's other community network calendars. And there's actually more than this. In fact, I put it on there. Well, Spingo is interesting. And then Your Post, those are flyers. You may just, when we get done here, I think if Cecilia's on, I'll send this to you, Cecilia, if you want to post this somewhere, or send this on to these folks. They can have these slides, but you can then go to some of these calendars. There's others. But again, I'd really encourage you to pick a group or look on the calendar, find which calendar has the groups you care about the most, so that you're going to the right meetings. Here's the key slide I created for this today was, okay, so let's talk about networking online. And you need to research the group you're going to talk to, set yourself up in a private area at your house so that you have less noise and stuff. I'll close the door, have some proper lighting. I actually bought this little ring thing that sets up the light on the thing, but this one is blinking, so I didn't put it on there. I have a problem in that I have the windows open here, so I look like I'm squinting because it's a little bright in here. So I'm still awake, but you want to make sure you're thinking through. You're on stage. Wear the appropriate attire. Always try to wear suits. No pajamas. I've heard some horror stories getting up and they're in their pajamas, the bottoms. Got hair, brush it, etc. Pay attention to what can be seen. You might put a logo behind you or something back there that you're basically, people can read what's back there. So maybe include a logo. So I added the Rainforest Innovations back there today. I don't know if you can see them. I think I'm covering it. I love the whole thing of the gimmicks. One of my students loves to put a whole picture of like a warehouse full of toilet paper. I think it's incredibly clever, but for a business setting, probably just keep it a business, and I'll show you a couple of examples. Then it ends up still the same rules apply. In retail, they always say your success if there's three things: location, location, location. Pretty tough right now. But I love that idea of a moniker. So I've always thought networking really turns into the real easy way to remember how to make it effective is there's the who you know and what you know, but there's also who knows you. And I'm still working on this, but I think one of the things you can do is acknowledge people you know on the screen. So if there's somebody in there, when you first get on, it's good to get in chat and just go around quickly and privately say, hey, how are you doing, Cecilia? What's happening, Lisa? Just a quick note so they recognize you and you recognize them. I think that's just courtesy. But then you may look and say, you've done your research a little bit. Geez, there's two people on this chat, this site I'd like to meet. So you might send them a note and say, oh, we haven't met, but would like to meet you, hear more about you. Of course, this isn't an appropriate time. You don't need to write a book, but you can say, maybe we can get grab a cup of coffee or meet another time. And so that's your networking. You still can meet one or two new people. In a normal meeting, I would have somebody probably walk me over and introduce me. Here, they know you're all there for a reason. So connect to one or two people. And I would say, sort of mentally force yourself to say, I'm going to meet in this, every meeting I go to, I'm going to meet two new people. There you go. Meet the two, your job is done. So what you know, so by including your picture, maybe your name, in fact, I thought I changed this. So it was Stacy Sacco and then had a comma, UNM. So people see my name and then keep recognizing I'm part of, that's my employer. And then the other thing I always encourage people to do at the end, if somebody says, or the speaker says, if you have that kind of a format, hey, do you have any questions? Every meeting I generally go to, the physical ones, if there's that going on, people get tired of me, but I'll raise my hand. I've been the president of groups and the organizer, and it's pretty sad if you have a meeting. Well, it's not sad, but it's that you have a meeting, you have the speaker, you brought him in, and at the end you say any questions, and nobody has any questions, it's crickets. The speaker feels like, wow, did I actually present well or what? And you're the host, so you want that speaker to feel great. You want the audience to think they got great value from being there. So to help facilitate that, having been on the other side, every meeting I go to, and when they say any questions, I'm the first one to raise my hand. That's why I know a lot of people look, oh, there he goes. I don't care. I'm going to do it. Because I want that, and I promise you, afterwards I'll go up to the speaker and say hi, and they go, oh my God, hey, what's your name, Stacy? Oh, wow, thank you for that great question. That was super. And then usually the organizer comes over, is very appreciative. So all of a sudden I'm a big hero here because I helped facilitate more value in that meeting. So what do? I ask a great question that, well, in my mind may be great, but it's a good question that makes the speaker look good, helps maybe move them forward. Maybe I noticed they didn't talk about something that would be great. Like, when's your next speech? Or aren't you publishing a book? When's that coming out? Whatever. I make them look great. I add value to the whole meeting. So by doing that, people see me as somebody that's clever, smart. If I can focus on anything where I even might say, by the way, in my role at this company, I do this, and you talked a little bit about that. So all of a sudden, what did I just do? I just did an ad for myself. You don't want to go on and on and on about how great you are, but definitely you can turn that question into something bigger. So who knows you? So that's about staying connected with people. So you might take a picture of the screen. I didn't put that in here. And then later write people and say, hey, good to see you there. Didn't get a chance to send you something in chat, but you're staying in touch with people, and so you're getting to know people and they get to know you. So you might, I don't say memorize these things, but use the time you're online with people to connect in and show up. I thought this was hilarious. I found this online. It was in England, I guess. Mom's in a meeting, 9:30, do not enter. The answer to your question might be here. Upstairs in the wash, no piece of fruit in your bedroom. I don't know what's for dinner. This is hilarious. I don't have kids, so I don't have to facilitate anything like this. But the point is, you want to have some privacy. So whatever you need to do to create this space. My wife's here today, so I let her know I'm online, and she's online. She's on the Public Arts Board for Albuquerque, so she's on conference calls in here with the mayor a lot. Well, I know to stay out of it and choose a great background. I think just having your own office is great, but if you're going to choose one, I went through, there are pages and pages of these online you can grab. I'm not in that room, so it's kind of fake to put that in there, but I just thought that was clever. I thought it was kind of cool. It looked like out of Harry Potter or something. Everybody wants that room. I don't think you need to be gimmicky, but it is fun. Networking tips for, I added 2 extra little slides in there. Networking tips for introverts. A lot of folks I know are introverts. And that's okay. You know, basically, your superpower as an introvert. You're a good listener, so that's better than us talkers. When you're in a room, two ears, one mouth. Use them in that ratio. So listen more than talk. I would always, to make introverts, make it easy going to one of these events, is just say to yourself, I'm going to meet two new people, so do two quick chat lines. Or if you're in a room, maybe pick somebody you know, say hi to them so you feel comfortable, and then see somebody new you want to meet or you read about on their website, go meet that one person. Your job's done. I have one of my buddies I used to go networking with. He had three people he'd want to meet. One he knew and two he didn't know. And when he'd get done, it was so hilarious. He'd go, I'm done, and he'd leave. Where are you going? Yeah, I did my job. Got my three people. I'm like, okay, I met 10, but it doesn't matter. It's all about the value of the relationship. I try not to meet, I used to try to meet 100 people and get a stack of cards. Well, that's ridiculous. You're never going to, you don't know them. So I try to make it about 5 people to 10 people, where I actually, if it's a couple hours in the room and you can talk, I try to make sure I have good conversations. There's some questions. If you're introverted, you might just get in your head some questions you'll ask, and don't be scripted again. And you certainly don't want to be like almost like you're interrogating them, but where are you from? Are you a member of the group? I have a technique called question on an answer. So if you say, where are you from? And they say, Ohio. Now you don't top them and go, well, I've been to Ohio and I'm great. Or, because I've seen that people go, well, I've been a member of the group for a year, and then they want to compete. You're better off to not do that. What you're better off to do is ask a question on the answer. So they say, I'm from Ohio. And then you say, oh, what part of Ohio? What brought you here? And then when they answer that, you ask a question on that answer, and you keep that moving forward. You're curious, but make it sincere. And then I have a lot of people in my sales classes who love to tell you should have a scripted elevator pitch. I don't think so. What you want to do, especially, is say, where are you from? Ohio. Where do you work? I work here. How's things going? Oh, well, I have a real problem with our HR issues. Okay. Then you might come back with, develop a customized elevator pitch where you say, oh, I've worked with people that had that same problem. We should get together sometime. We can tell you what we did. So you're basically, now your elevator pitch is tied to what they said. So that could be any one of a bunch of elevator pitches. So if I meet 100 people in a room, I might have 100 elevator pitches, if that makes sense. You customize what you're about. You might have a standard one. Okay, I'm an adjunct lecturer at UNM Anderson School of Management. I teach entrepreneurial studies, and I'm the director of SBI. And I have some things I could spin off of that. But I don't want it to be so much about me. I want it to be about them. I'm there to learn from them. Some creative tips if you're in a networking situation, you're an introvert, sit with people you know. I don't really necessarily encourage that because you're not meeting new people, but it's comfortable. So that's okay. Although I have a friend of mine at the bottom of his email, it always says, learning begins when you're outside your comfort zone. So anyways, invite a guest. I had a lot of people who will invite a customer to an event so they get to know them better. And bring an extrovert. There's a woman in town here before I got married who was very introverted, high level, and she was really uncomfortable going to networking things. So she'd invite me as her guest. We weren't dating, but I would go with her, and I'd work the room and then bring people over to her to meet her. And when I got married, she called my wife and asked if she could still take me to events. And so on occasion we'd go, but I've had a lot of people invite me to events just so I can be their host or guest. But so you can do that with someone else. If there's somebody knows a lot of people, invite them and then say, boy, it sure be great if you could introduce me to some people. So you can control this environment more as an introvert. And then last here is, or two last comments, is you want to stand out in the crowd eventually beyond just networking. So be the best at something. Convey yourself as a subject matter expert in something. That might be earning degrees, certificates, industry licenses, so that people see you as a solution to a problem. So they keep coming back to you for that. Get connected. When you meet people, definitely have a database at home that you keep track of everything. Could be just as simple as an Excel spreadsheet. Make sure you're connected on LinkedIn. I have constant contact. I have several thousand links on there or contacts on there, but I also do have many Excel spreadsheets. Their whole idea is to help them solve their problems. So that's how you get connected. You can do some other demonstrative things to get people to know you, and that's, write a book, write some articles, get quoted. If you're going to speak somewhere, you probably should have a list of the 3-4 topics you cover. I get calls all the time. Could you be our speaker? And they go, what are you talking about? Or what do you want me to talk about? And I say, well, here's 3 things I normally talk about. And generally they'll customize, whittle that down to something else. If you want to learn to be a better speaker, there's lots of opportunities at UNM and some other courses where you can take online speech classes. But ultimately, you got to be practice. So one of the groups I joined years ago was Toastmasters, very involved with that. It's a public speaking club. They're still meeting. I was a guest speaker at one a few weeks ago. There's about 75 to 100 groups here in the state, about 25 right here in Albuquerque. You want to pick one that meets at a certain time that matches your schedule. District 23 is the broader district, and they have a find a chapter list in there. There used to be, for anybody who hears from UNM, there used to be a chapter that would meet at the sub. I think that one's gone away. It was more international students, and I think there's another one up on North Campus. I should have checked, sorry, but I can do that later. But you can too. District 23, about 25 groups in this Albuquerque area. But now you can pretty much go anywhere. So you want to be recognized. So have people, this is going to sound bad, but have people nominate you for awards or nominate yourself. I'm up for several right now. Most of those were awards with Albuquerque Business or Albuquerque the Magazine. I didn't even know about them. So I'm telling you, have somebody nominate. I didn't get nominated by anybody. I got lucky on those or earned them. But the other thing is you might nominate others. I tend to nominate 2-3 people for everything I ever see an award. You have to be careful. You don't want to do it just to score points with somebody, but sometimes I'll meet somebody and say, oh, by the way, I nominated you for this award. Very subtle. And then they usually, well, thank you so much. It's great. Well, you deserve it. And many times they'll win, and then I'll be invited to the lunch or the award ceremony and sit with them. So it's a little contrived, but part of it is that you're wanting to reward people for great effort in the community. So last slide is, I met this gentleman years ago. He was running for president, Jack Kemp. And I'm an independent, not GOP, but it ends up that Jack was at a dinner at Pepperdine University, and I knew his son, Jeff Kemp, who was a LA Rams quarterback. He was in a lot of my classes. But I asked him one time, why are you running for president, when I was there? And it was a great message. He said, when he was a kid, he borrowed a teenager, borrowed his friend's car. He was going to give his friend money. Instead of giving him money, he decided, no, I would clean the car up. His friend didn't want the money, but he cleaned the car, washed it, filled it up with gas, and fixed the mirror and gave it back better than he got it. And his friend was so appreciative. He said, as a government official, I want to give the country back better than I got it. So it's about making a difference. And I think if you live that way, very simply, give it whenever you're involved in anything. And the big story for me was that I thought, well, I'm not going to run for president, but I am a dad, or not a dad, I'm a brother. I've got a lot of pets, so I'm a dad there, but I'm a husband. I fill a lot of roles. I'm a teacher. 16 weeks later, if my students aren't better off because they came to my class, then we got a problem. Why were you there? I mean, like my wife, if she's not better off being married to me, we shouldn't be married. Don't marry someone. I'll introduce you to somebody. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that everything you do should create value. And so you should make it better. And that's a great little statement to sort of keep in the back of your head when you go to events or on a board, any of your jobs. The jobs I had at Transamerica, we'd better damn well have sold more insurance because I was the vice president of marketing. Or what was I doing there? I mean, that's what it's all about. So it really changed my thinking. So for all of you, when you're at a networking thing, if you can help people have a better, realize their goals, solve a problem, and you make it better than what they have or you got. Wow, great story to tell. Jack has since passed. I met him, but what an inspiration to me, just that message. And that was very clearly in his heart and his soul. And I think that's um, what drives me more than anything is in the 1,000 weeks I have left, I'm going to keep making it better than I got it. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, I'm certainly happy to take them. Otherwise, I'd love for Cecilia to come on again and maybe tell you about some other programs. They have some mentorship programs with Susan. Great programs coming up. So I'll leave it to that. I told Cecilia that I'd end early, so I am.